Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another Inner Hour. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. Alrighty, so let's see here. Okie dokie, I think we're all set up. So we're going to record tonight as usual and put up on the YouTube channel. For those of you who if anybody misses it or wants to see it later or whatever. And if you don't have that information, let me know. Okie dokie. So, oops, no candle. Hang on, let me grab the candle. My prop person failed to set it.
Oops.
My prop person actually was me. So, anyway. See, I get used to me doing all this stuff, and then when I do it, I forget things. So, take a moment, relax, enjoy being here, relax from whatever you may have been caught up in today or this week, and give yourself some time. Alrighty. Alrighty. Whoops. Okie dokie. So, tonight, as usual, I'm going to do a reading, but unusually, I'm not going to do something from the Bible, and I'm going to do something you may have heard of, you may be familiar with. Not a lot of people are, unless they really study like Christian mysticism. This is from a work called The Cloud of Unknowing, and the author is actually unknown. There have been a lot of speculations over the years about who wrote it. It was first appeared in the 1300s, so it would have been the 14th century, I guess. In 12 and 1300s, by the way, for those who are interested in mysticism, in Europe, and especially Western Europe, there were a lot of Sufi mystics, a lot of Jewish Kabbalistic mystics, a lot of Christian mystics who were writing and teaching and active during that time. And many of them were very friendly and shared information, shared experiences, shared techniques or practices. So anyway, this one is an unknown Christian, and history has never actually disclosed a definitive person as the author. I'm going to read you some from it tonight, but the essence of the work is contrary to a lot of other spiritual teachings and things were being taught in that era. This author is talking about as a contemplative practice. By the way, the beginning of the book basically says not to disclose any of the contents of this book to somebody who is not already well versed in the teachings, and somebody who has not committed themselves to really knowing God, and that it was kind of an exclusive audience that it was intended for. Pardon me. The basic premise is that there's an aspect of God, or there are facets to God that are not consciously knowable to us. They're beyond what the mind can grasp, and that's part of the unknowing aspect. Then a more specific part of the teaching is that when you first enter into contemplative practices, inner-focused meditative practices, that there's, in the early stages, the first thing you encounter is nothing. You don't, when people talk about going within and seeing the light, you don't see any light. You don't hear any voice. What you see is dark, and nothing happens. So many people who practice meditation, even these days, particularly in certain phases, it's like nothing's happening and they're not aware of anything going on and they don't see or hear anything. So it's very frustrating and they kind of think it's a bunch of hokum, or they're doing it wrong, or they give up, or whatever the case may be. So that's talked about in pretty great detail in this book. It's a readily available book still. It's a popular one among mystics, but overall not a widely known one, unless you make a point of studying that sort of thing. So I'm going to read you some. These are not. It's not a consecutive section. I've taken excerpts from different sections, like I do when we do Bible things. So I'll read these to you. When the end of one excerpt happens and a different one, a non sequitur one, begins, I'll let you know. And so, the first time that you lift your heart to God in love and look within, you will find only darkness, as if it were a great cloud of unknowing. Whatever you do, there is this dark cloud that seems to be between you and your God. This seems to hold you back from seeing Him clearly in the light of understanding and from experiencing Him in your feelings. So prepare yourself to encounter this darkness and be committed to remain there as long as you must, always seeking His love. For if you are ever to come to have a direct encounter with Him, to really see Him or experience His love, you must first be willing to penetrate this cloud of darkness. So that's the end of the first segment. And then this is one from later in the book. For the divine can well be loved and experienced, but simply cannot be thought. By love He can be grasped and even embraced, but by thought neither grasped nor held. And therefore, though it may be good at times to think specifically about an attribute of God, about His kindness or excellence or majesty or grace, and though such contemplation may be part of your meditation, all the same, the deep work of contemplation itself must bypass these and let them fall into a cloud of forgetting. You must, in other words, step above all of these attributes of God, stoutly, determinedly, deftly, with a devout commitment to love. Struggle to pierce that darkness above you. Keep pushing on that cloud of unknowing with your dart of longing love, and no matter what happens, do not give up. So that's another excerpt. I have three more. So I urge you, seek divine experience rather than knowledge. On account of your pride, knowledge can easily deceive you. But this pervasive, profound, gentle, loving affection that is the nature of the divine will never deceive you. Knowledge also tends to breed conceit, whereas love builds in humility. Knowledge is full of hard labor, but love is full of rest. That's the end of that section. When we intend to pray for goodness let our desire be contained in one small word, God. Really, nothing else and no other words are needed. For what we call by this small word, God, is really the epitome of all goodness and all spiritual reality. And if we experience that, it can speak to us without needing to know precise ideas about God's works and the mechanics of those works, whether spiritual or material. Do not consider any particular virtue which God may either reveal to you or give to you through his grace, whether those virtues are humility, charity, patience, hope, faith, healing, whatever they may be. For to a mystic, all of those are, in a sense, the same. So let this simple word, God, begin to convey to you his fullness and nothing less than his fullness. So that's the end of that segment. The last reading is, if you want to gather all your longing and desire for God into one simple word that your mind can easily retain and remember, it does not really matter if you use the word God itself, but choose any short word, no string of words, no long one. A one-syllable word is best, a simple, easy to remember one that you can return to. Perhaps love is best of all. But whatever word you choose to use in your contemplation, choose a simple, singular, that is very meaningful to you. And then, as fully as possible, fix your entire mind upon it so that it holds fast to that no matter what other inner experiences may come. This word will be your defense. It will be your peace. It will be your anchor. Use it to penetrate the cloud of darkness above you, to subdue and remove all distractions, even singular attributes of God itself, but not the fullness, and consign all those lesser distractions to the cloud of forgetting which is beneath you. So that's just a few short excerpts from the Cloud of Unknowing. You kind of get the gist of it, I think, from that collection of them. And I don't know what you get out of that, but one of the things that's been beneficial for many spiritual students over the decades, actually millennia, I guess, is that so often when we read spiritual teachings, we read about them from people who are great masters or great saints or great souls, whatever you want to call them, really far along the path in terms of really being awake and aware. And when they talk about some of their inner experiences of seeing God face to face, about being transported into higher heavenly realms, about being filled with power, about miracles and healing, about all these various things that we kind of, parts of us think, wow, I want that. It seems as though all mystics have these great, profound experiences, and then you sit down, in your little chair or wherever you are to meditate, and you even use some of the techniques that some teachers have taught you, these words that they've given you, or this chant that they've given you, or this methodology that they've given you, or this imagery that whatever they've given you to you practice this. This is what works, or you read about. This is what this great teacher, that great mystic did, and it worked for them, and you try that. They may well work for you, and they may work quickly for you. That's certainly a possibility, and that happens. It's happened to me, it happens. But it might not happen to you. And if it doesn't happen to you, if instead when you make this inner effort of contemplative meditative practices to find God, to really know God directly. When you seek that, instead of finding the knowing that you want, you find unknowing. You find that you don't see the inner light. You don't see it. Now again, maybe some of you, I'm sure, by now do see it. But particularly in the beginning stages and other later stages sometimes as well, you won't. You don't see a light at all. There's just nothing. It's black. It's dark there. So when you go inside expecting to see all these heavenly glories, what you see is dark. And that can be very frustrating, sometimes maybe frightening even, certainly can be disappointing. You think maybe all these teachings are a bunch of, hokum or aren't really true, or you think it's just your imagination, or you think you're doing it wrong, or you think you don't deserve it, you're not worthy enough for it. Any of those things, all of which are false, but you might think them, because you're not having the experience you expect to have based on what you've been taught or based on what you've read. And so it can be quite frustrating. And holding your attention to that inner focus when nothing after nothing after nothing after dark after nothing after unknowing after dark happens, it's easy to give up. Get down on yourself, get down on your teacher, get down on, it's not working. So there's some comfort in this book for those students, maybe us, who have those kind of struggles along the way. And it's like, well, why is this happening? So there is this cloud of unknowing, and there are different aspects to it and different purposes for it. And understanding those can help ease the frustration and increase the commitment to penetrate that cloud. So the cloud is there for a number of reasons. So I want to talk briefly about them. First, there is a veil. Between every layer of consciousness, there's a veil between the next higher one. So in this physical consciousness that we're aware of because we have it every single day we're alive and awake, this physical consciousness that we have, there's a veil above it that keeps us actually from having sensory observation of the next higher realm of life. And we think this is it, and when we try to penetrate that, there doesn't appear to be anything. And then something penetrates it. The grace of God opens it up, our efforts open it up, our meditative practices open it up. In the end, ultimately, it's our longing, it's the purity of our love eventually, in all situations, that really opens the door. But our efforts with love behind them can penetrate that, and then it opens, and you will sometimes see it actually open or dissolve as a veil, or like you penetrate through a veil, or like you go through an opening in the sky, or different ways of experiencing it. But you go through this, something opens that was closed before, and it opens, and then you have a whole different caliber of experience. You either see things you couldn't see before, feel things you couldn't feel before, or aware of things you weren't aware of before. There's an inrush and influx of this wonderful energy or peace or things being revealed to you. Lots can happen, quite varied, but first that has to be opened. And then once you reach this next higher level and you think, wow, this is it, and you've really learned how to open to that, which is awesome, eventually down the road there's another one. And there's there's kind of another ceiling that you reach, and there's another higher level you haven't penetrated yet, and there's another veil, and you get as high as you can get. And then there are, again, ways to move through that veil, but ultimately it's all the purity and intensity of your love for God that really opens all those doors. So first, those veils are there for a reason, because it would be overwhelming if you could just experience all that at once. It would just like fry all your circuits. It's too much. Secondarily, those layers are there to insulate you from remembering all your past life experiences. Because again, talk about overwhelm. You think you sometimes have more than you can handle in this life. What if suddenly you had 4 or 5 or 6 or 100 lifetimes? Boom, in there. too much. So it's a protective mechanism, like an insulator around a wire, so that number one, the wire doesn't burn things it touches, and number two, you don't get burnt touching the wire. So it's kind of an insulator idea. That's part of its purpose. Um, Another aspect of this is not those layers of veils themselves, which act as an unknowing layer. The other aspect of it is that as we do actually proceed through those veils and awaken to higher and higher realities of life, to deeper and deeper knowing of the divine in us, no matter what our ego, no matter what our failings, no matter what our flaws, which all of, I want to say all of you, I'll just say all of me, but certainly human beings are filled with them. I've yet to meet a human being who wasn't. So we have a lot of flaws at this level, and we make a lot of mistakes. So even in light of that, as we penetrate these different layers and move into these higher mansions or higher realms of consciousness or higher aspects of life, there are many different ways they're described in the mystic teachings. Jesus called them many mansions. St. Teresa called them different heavenly palaces. Yoga calls them different realms of being or states of consciousness. Different ways of describing all this. Even once we begin to penetrate all that, as we reach very, very sublime levels of spiritual reality and awareness of these very, very powerful and yet very subtle levels of spiritual perception, as we reach those and begin to encounter more of the full reality of this thing we call God, which is much, much bigger than a word, much, much bigger than our concepts about God, infinitely boundless, love beyond anything we've ever known, peace beyond anything we've ever felt, joy beyond anything imaginable, all of that. As we get into those extraordinary realms of awareness, then we reach this other life soul experience, this knowing, this encounter, I'll use that word. We reach this encounter with this realization that the full entirety of the nature and being and boundlessness of the divine is not knowable by the mind. It never has been, and it never will be. It is too big. The mind can't hold it. It can't even conceive of holding it. It's like conceiving of what's beyond infinity and then beyond that and beyond that. You can use those words, but you can't really do it. There is an unknown aspect to our relationship with the ultimate divine. And like it says in this text, that it simply cannot be thought or grasped or held by thought, but it can be grasped, it can be experienced by love. And we are to seek that experience rather than knowledge itself. Rather than seeking an attribute of God, seeking the wisdom of God, or seeking the healing of God, or seeking the whatever it is of God, the power of God, whatever, we seek God. Not his gifts, not his attributes, but God itself. And there is an aspect to that we can encounter, we can participate in it, we can connect to it in such an intimate way that we can't distinguish between the me that I am and the it that it is. There's this profound knowing of the oneness of us and the divine, a oneness that actually can't be broken even though we can perceive ourselves as separate from it. And yet in the midst of that, there's also something bigger than our experience can hold. There's an acknowledgement of something bigger than our experience can hold, and a yielding to that in awe, a bowing down to that, a surrender to it, a willingness to give ourselves to it. And that experience is talked about in lesser or greater degrees in the writings of the great mystics of the ages. But in this book, there's an effort to try to explain that unknowing part, both in terms of the veils that eventually we do work through in our contemplative practices, and also in terms of the beyondness of it at a certain point. No matter how high our realization, there's always something beyond. And coming to peace with that within ourselves, of not needing to know everything and recognizing that not everything can be known. So one of the mystical practices that goes along with this understanding is something called don't know. And if you're like me, you like to know. You like to know the reasons, you like to know the whys and wherefores, you like to have all the specifics figured out. And sometimes that happens. That we can do that in many arenas of our life. Even some of the spiritual arenas, we can do that. But there are also realms and part of the nature of the divine that we simply can't do that with. At least at this level, while we're in the body and working with the mind. Once those are dissolved and we're not at those levels, then who knows what's possible, because right now we are at those levels. So this don't know practice, it has a very practical application as well. And that is, how many times in life do you have to proceed without the knowledge you wish you had? Or you're waiting to find out something that you can't know until it's given, and so you just have to wait. You have a very important medical result that you're waiting on that could be great news or terrible news, either for yourself or for someone you really care about. And what comes next in your life hinges on that. What is that result? And you can't know it until the result is complete and it's revealed to you by the medical team or the doctor, whoever it is, as much as you want to know ahead of time, or perhaps maybe as much as you don't want to know. You can't. You're just waiting. You wait. You wait until it's revealed. There are things you want to understand about God, things you want to understand about why God does what God does. Why this? Why not that? How come you did this? How come you wouldn't do that? How come you did this? How come you didn't do that? How come this is happening, for heaven's sakes? Why not that happening? How come this turned out this way? Oh my God, how come this turned out this way? Why didn't it turn out the way it should have turned out? All those kind of questions that arise in our personal and global lives, all of those questions, the don't know practice coming from this aspect is don't know. Don't know. And again, we have to wait. And either the revelation will eventually come, and one day we'll go, oh, I get it. I'm willing to bet, that some of you have had at least one teacher in your life who has said something to you that you didn't understand when they told it to you. Or you didn't even believe. It's like, I don't know, that's not right. And you kind of resisted it, or you just didn't understand it at all. And somewhere down the road, maybe a day, maybe an hour, maybe years, quite literally, I've had that happen. All of a sudden, it's like, oh my God. And once you get it, then it's like, why did I get that? How could it have taken so long for me to get it? How could I not have got it? But once you get it, you have it. Or ever read a spiritual book. And you read it, and parts of you go, yes, yes. And then part of you go, what? And then another part you go, oh yeah, oh yeah. And then another part you go, what? And you try and try and try to figure out the what part, and it just like won't click. It's like, what? So you put it aside and you come back to it later and you read it and you still can't get it. And then one day, who knows how far down the road, you look at that same section of the book and everything clicks and you go, oh, that's the don't know. Don't know. And you wait until either it's revealed to you inwardly, which again, spiritually, that's how that mostly occurs, or externally. Or maybe you have children or grandchildren or friends you really, really, really care about, and they're going a direction in your life thinking, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, please don't let them go that way. And you pray and you wish and maybe even talk to them, but you can't dissuade them. They're going to do their chosen thing, and it's not going to go well. And then at some point, but you don't know how it's going to turn out. You're just waiting. Okay, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? And then eventually, something shifts, and you go, oh, whew. And then you do know what happened, and hopefully it was good. Even if it wasn't, at least you know what happened. But so you probably had those experiences. If we look, I think, realistically at our lives, a great deal of our life, we tell ourselves many things. Who we are, who we're not, who that guy is, who that girl is, who they aren't, who we think they should be that they're not being, who this person, what they should do but they're not, what the world should be like but it isn't, how this should have turned out but it didn't. We tell ourselves a lot of those things, but that's just jibber jabber that we're telling ourselves. There's quite a bit of our life, if we're honest, that we just don't know. So you ate food today sometime, and that food managed to get into your body, managed to be digested, and assimilated what you needed out of it, and then distributed that, whether it was the oxygen or nutrients or whatever it might have been, to all the places that it needed to go inside your body. Then the parts that didn't need it began to eliminate. Did you figure out how to do all that? Do you know how all that happened? Do you know all those mechanisms of the protein and lipase digestions and how that works? How the assimilation through cells works, how the blood-brain barrier works, do you know all that? Do you figure all that out every time you eat? Nope, you don't, but it happens. So a lot of our life we don't know. And a lot of our life is waiting. Have you noticed that? You wait in line at the grocery store, you wait in line at the bank, you wait in line to find out test results, you wait in line to get into college, you wait in line to find the right person, you wait in line to have the relationship you want, you wait to get the job you want, you wait to find the house you want, you wait to get the car that's just right for you. You wait, you do a lot of waiting. So the point of some of this part of the teaching is, how do you wait? Do you wait peacefully and confidently and willingly in the not knowing, but knowing that it will come forward when it comes forward, that it will unfold as it unfolds, which sounds kind of obvious, but do you know that? Do you know it's really going to unfold when and as it unfolds? And are you comfortable with that? Are you comfortable in waiting for that? Or are you stressed and struggling and pushing the whole time to try to make it happen when you want and the way you want? Because we create a lot of suffering and I do this, just why I know about it. We create a lot of there's enough suffering we do encounter in life. We create way more suffering than we need to encounter by carrying those kind of attitudes in response to not knowing and in response to having to wait. We're like spoiled children who don't want to wait. And we throw tantrums and scream and bang, and in the end, that accomplishes nothing except getting us upset because it doesn't happen until it happens anyway. So how do we wait? And part of the spiritual teaching is to help us find ways to manage that unknowing and the stress it can cause, and be more able to just hold, to hold in a space of loving, to hold in a space of positive expectancy, to hold in a state of hopefulness instead of hopelessness, to hold for what will unfold, and to be able to acknowledge and embrace it as it unfolds. So that's some of the teachings from this that I get out of this particular work. And and it's echoed in, as I said before, in many other mystical teachings. So I'm hoping something in that is useful to you or inspiring to you. So if not, let's hope that in the meditation God inspires you more than I have, and that something good happens there. So we're going to just stop talking. I'm going to ask you to just bring your attention inside, close your eyes, and let go of trying to figure it out. Let go of trying to control how it's going to happen. And be grateful to be alive. Be grateful to be conscious of self, conscious of other, conscious of the divine in self and in other. Grateful to be awake to the fact that there is a reality and a meaning and a value to being alive. And that we have been granted the grace to experience and to express love. And allow that love to begin to awaken more fully in us. And awaken us more fully to what the reality of the divine really is. Beyond all our concepts, beyond all our imagining. What is that God in us and beyond us? And let the love of that pure boundlessness be at the core of our desires and our choices. So in this silence, invite that into your awareness and hold a space for that to come present in you. Let's just begin to bring our attention back once more. Have you ever dreamed of a world at peace, of finding one to love, in whom you could believe? Have you ever longed for a heart of grace, of knowing you belong, hand in hand and face to face? Then know somewhere there's a place for you, and when you come, I will be there too, waiting and still loving you. Does it ever seem there's too much misery, too many good who die, not ever knowing why? And do you ever wish that you could start again, take back what's been done, try to make amends? Life's too fast, there's no time to waste. Share your love, do not hesitate. One by one, the world is saved. So, thank you all for being here this evening with us. We sure appreciate it. And, excuse me, just a couple of quick announcements. There's one of our Gather and Grow potlucks tomorrow at Larry and Brenda's house. I know a number of you are signed up for that, so I'll see you there. I don't think we have any more openings for that. You can always check with Ani if you like to make sure.
We do not. We are full.
Oh, hello. Say it again, sweetie.
We are full.
Thank you. And then I'm the guest speaker at the Unity Church here on Sunday. Their service is at 10:30. So you're welcome to join us for that too. They won't be full. And, they might be crowded, I hope, but they won't be full. Anyway, you're welcome to join in on that. So, invite you this week to allow yourself to have a week of peace, and whether there are things you don't yet know that you wish you did, or whether there aren't, just allow yourself to open to peace within you this week. And because there are lots of troubled people in the world, and lots of people hurting in the world. If you know someone, include them in your prayers, and if possible, actually reach out to them. Let them know there's somebody that cares that they're struggling. So whether you reach out in a phone call or a text or an email or in person, however you do it. And the there's a tremendous strength in connecting with one another, and wherever we can offer kind words or words of encouragement or just our presence can really be a blessing to someone. So I encourage you to do that this week, wherever you might be inspired to do it. So, all right, we're going to wrap it up for the evening. I'm going to stop the recording. I'm going to close down everything. Thank you for joining us. And if you don't have our YouTube channel information and want it, the only thing up there are these. So it's not like there's a lot going on there. But if you ever want to access that and don't know where it is or where to find it, just let us know. All right. Love you. Thanks for being with me tonight. And I will see some of you this weekend. The rest of you hopefully next week. All right. Bye for now.